Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got former Outlaw member and former Hells Angel member, Bob and PeeWee.
Howdy, I'm Bob. I'm a retired member of the Outlaws in Canada, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
I'm PeeWee. I'm a former Hells Angel, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Hey, good to meet you, PeeWee. I've seen you on a few other channels. You got your own channel too?
No, I don't, bro. Hey, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't going to do any more of these at all, you know?
Yeah.
Billy calls me up, and I just did 3 weeks ago. They flew me out to LA to do that shit that started by you guys over there, that Hells Angel Kingdom Come, when they started in Canada.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's called Hells Angels Kingdom Come. It started off all about Canada. It tells everything about Canada. And then now they're moving into the United States, and it's Vice, VICE, Vice channel.
Yeah.
And they're probably prepping it right now, getting it ready. And when it comes out, should be pretty soon. But yeah, they flew me to LA for that.
I like Vice. They got good programs.
Yeah, they do, bro. And I told them that. I says, I watch your station, man. You guys got good programs on here, you know?
Yeah, they brought me out to New York, and I did an interview for Vice too. So maybe I'll be on the same episode as you, PeeWee.
Oh, great! All right.
They said I'm a motorcycle expert.
Oh, yeah. There you are.
I guess anybody could be an expert nowadays, huh?
Right.
They used to use Hollywood for that, you know, Insane Throttle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to use him for that.
Shout out to Insane Throttle. So
yeah, he's good people.
Today I want to talk about the relationship between the Outlaws in the US and in Canada in the past. You know, it's nothing present. We're not talking about any club business or anything like that. I want to talk about what was your relationship with people from Canada, PeeWee, and what was your relationship with people from the United States, Bob? We'll start with PeeWee.
Well, my relationship with the Hells Angels that were in Canada was great. I mean, I could never get into Canada, obviously, you know, and like I'm sure they had it the same way for Bob, where no outlaws could cross the border and go into Canada.
I had a window where I made it.
He did. He came to the US.
You should show me that window, Bob.
Yeah.
All the years I was in the club, I never ever got to go to Canada. I always wanted to. Now, the guy said they could sneak me in, but be at my size, somebody would have saw me. I would have got arrested. Because one guy did from Massachusetts, and they held him for 3 months in a jail in Canada before they released him. And I mean, I just couldn't do shit like that. So I thought, I was doing enough jail time here and there. I wasn't about to go to Canada to see what that was like. So I had a good relationship with all the Canadian Hells Angels wherever I seen them, you know. And I would see them mostly like in Amsterdam or all over the world. But they would come here a lot, United States. They'd stay at my house and everything, you know.
Yeah, it was like an explosion of Hells Angels in Canada because when he first became present with the Outlaws, he said there were no angels up there, right? In your area?
Well, my area, no. That like Canada's in provinces, and we got 10 provinces, and the main money one is Ontario, which is where the Outlaws were based. We called it Outlaws Canada, but our chapters, by the time I joined the club, were in Ontario only, and that was the only province that the Hells Angels hadn't came to yet. But they were on both sides. They were working their way in.
I knew they grew like wild grass over there, bro. They were charter after charter was popping up, you know.
Well, when I joined the Outlaws, all there was for Hells Angels was British Columbia.
Right.
They were, I think, the original ones from Canada and Quebec, which is right beside Ontario. So they were already right beside us. And that was at Montboucher, and they were having the biker wars, as the press called them, with the rock machine.
Right.
And then they just went zoom, and they took every province, because we never bothered to. It was as much our own fault as anything else. We didn't ever bother to go to Manitoba or Alberta, and they did.
And the crazy thing, Pee-wee, all these people who became Hells Angels were his former associates. They were ex-outlaws and people like that.
Well, I remember an incident, and Bob probably remembers this. I was a San Francisco Hells Angel at the time, and I was standing outside the Cow Palace, and they had a big swap meet going on, and Cisco from Oakland walks out to me, and he says, and at that time, we had a truce with the Outlaws. We had like this big truce with them. And I was standing outside talking to somebody, and Cisco walks out and says, "Hey, Pee-wee." I looked at him, I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hey, we just got a call. The truce is off." And I kind of looked at him, like, "What do you mean a truce is off?" And he goes, the Outlaw just called us and said, "F you, a truce is off." Because, now this is the way I heard it. He said, there was a charter of outlaws, and I don't know where, maybe Bob knows what I'm talking about, somewhere in Canada, that they took off their patches, they burned all their patches, and then they flipped over to become Hells Angels, which, like Bob knows, we really didn't do that with each other,
No, and
because,
that was one of the rules that was from the States.
Right. And Bob's right, because there was a member that I'm still very close with today. He's not a member no more. They kicked him out. His son is an outlaw, and he was a Hells Angel, but he grew up with all these guys that were outlaws. He went to grade school with them, so They all know him. And he tried to hang back around with him, I swear to God. And he went to all the functions, he went to Taco's funeral. He went to all of them, man. He was on everything. He was trying to get into the outlaw so bad. I couldn't believe it. And with no disrespect to Bob or anything, I was like, why the fuck do you want to jump back into a fire again, bro? Yeah. You're out. Stay out, man. Yeah. I said, you're going to join these guys, and then the guys that used to be are going to be after you, and the other guys, too much, man. And he said, I just want to be one. But then you're national. He's from Florida or something. After Taco, they had like a national that was in Florida, and he told my bro right to his face, long as I'm in this club, you'll never be an outlaw in here because you used to be an angel.
Yeah. And see, that was, like you say, the long-standing rule.
And right.
When they decided to patch in the clubs in Ontario that they were patching in, then they also came for us guys. And we had a whole chapter of guys that split off and quit the Outlaws and then joined the Rock Machine. And then the Rock Machine joined the Angels. So they basically went boom, boom. And we went, you can't do that. And they said, well, it's done. And the guys from Quebec said, we don't care. We don't care. We're doing whatever we want. We don't care. There used to be a thing about not putting clubhouses close to each other. They opened theirs right around the corner from us in our city, right around the corner.
They offered you a patch too, right?
Yeah, they offered me a patch twice. So, and then even after I retired, I bumped into one of the guys, and he was a former outlaw that went to the Angels in my city. And then he moved to another city, and he said, hey, why don't you come hang around? And I know what that means. Come hang around means.
Right. Yeah, we know what it means, Bob.
Yeah.
But Pee-wee, they wanted him as a full patch outlaw to come prospect for the Angels. Now, do you think that would be like a trick? Like, hey, come prospect.
Well, yeah, because Bob can agree with this. Just like me and Bob are sitting here talking, we've met in a bar or something, we could be best of friends. But because what we wore on our back told us, I have to hate Bob, Bob has to hate me. Yeah. We don't even know why we hate each other, but that's the way it was. And Bob's right. That was a written rule. We could not switch teams.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like we had a couple guys over the years that quit our club and then wore no patch for 1 year, and then they went and joined one of the charters in Quebec because they weren't in Ontario yet. But that was crazy when they came to Ontario because they patched in all these clubs, right? Maybe 6 clubs. They patched over all at once, all at one party. And so there was like 300 of them all of a sudden in Ontario. One day there's 300 of them. But then you watch them wean them down, and they probably left with a third of that now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that weren't ready.
Now, do they do that? Do they offer people patches? They drop their colors in this club, and then they go to it, and they're like, "Nah, we ain't taking you," because then you're out of a club.
Well, like Bob can agree with this, man. Like, see, they're all mad right now. I've only talked to him on the phone. I don't know him like on a personal basis, but Conan, their big president they had for the pagans, his real name is Keith. And they were mad at Keith because he did that blue wave. You remember where he was like taking all these clubs in?
Yeah.
And Bob will tell you that's dangerous, bro, because you're taking in garbage in some of these clubs that you don't know shit about.
You get their stitches.
Yeah. Took the words out of my mouth. And guys who are confidential informants, you take all that.
Yeah.
And that's where he screwed up. That's why his club is divided now. Half of them are like, fuck him, and the other half are like, no, he's still the boss,
Oh, you can't run a club like that.
No, and when he gets out, Bob, it's going to be ugly, and he gets out pretty soon. And it's going to be ugly, but his club is torn in half about it.
I couldn't believe I saw them guys pull into Florida. Like, Outlaws always owned Florida with a lock and key.
Bro, they're in Vegas now, too. The Pagans.
So they're stepping on everyone's toes.
They're in California. They're all over the place.
And they're in California. Yeah, they're by Long Beach. But how they did that, Bob, is they became good friends with the Mongols. And the Mongols said, you can move wherever we are. We'll move wherever you are. So they're just intermingling everywhere, bro.
That's crazy.
And the Mongols and Outlaws had a truce out in Chicago, and then some friction started happening. I don't know really what happened with that.
Well, I had one outlaw tell me to my face, like last year, at the end of last year, he told me the biggest problem they got is with the pagans. And they said that they were keeping them out of Wisconsin. And I says, yeah. And I said, don't. He said, yeah, that's who we got problems with. That's what he said to me. And I told him, well, don't you have problems with the Mongols too? And he says, yeah, we do now. Yeah, we don't get along with them. And I says, oh, hold on a minute, man. I remember when you guys were like bosom buddies. And he says, this is what he told me. He says, yeah, well, one of our members down south punched little Dave in the face, and that set the whole thing off. Jeez. And usually, something like that, a national president comes in and gets smashed in the face. Yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah. Wow.
And there was stupidest shit too,
There was something going on when I was around too with the Mongols, and I thought they were going to join our club for a minute there, to be honest with you.
I did too, Bob.
Yeah. I really thought they were patching over.
The Mongols? We're going to patch over?
I thought so. At least the way it kind of felt to me. Nobody
felt that way to me.
Yeah. Nobody said anything official. They don't talk to the guys, from the States. It doesn't reach all over the place what their intentions are.
Yeah.
Especially if it's only in the planning stage. It's less people that know, the better, right?
Right.
Just the way everything goes.
And now them guys are the Mongols and the pagans, they're bosom buddies, they're the best of friends,
See, that's a weird thing. And I think the big thing that screwed it up between the Outlaws and the Mongols was we had a CI in our club. That's how come we were all in jail. So we had this CI in our club, and he rose all the way to chapter boss.
Oh man.
He was sitting at all the big boy meetings and everything, man. So.
Well, so was my vice president. He was the same, Bob. Wearing a wire, everything.
Yeah, man. Bringing him into the meetings. I used to have to wrestle the cell phone out of his hand at meetings. Give me that, man. You know what I mean? And anyways, the CI also went into the States. And at that time, our guy at the top was a guy named Frank from Indianapolis. And Frank got recalled because of our snitch, Frank, the National Sergeant of Arms from Detroit, and a few other guys near the top, and they all got screwed over.
Wow.
And one time I was sitting with the CI talking to him because I didn't know he was the CI at the time, and he had a Mongols ring on his finger.
Wow.
You don't trade that between clubs.
No. So that was weird. That's weird.
I thought so.
You know, it's funny what Bob was just saying is there was a guy in the Angels. He used to be in the Dirty Dozen when they took over the Dirty Dozen. And that's what's amazing. When Bob said they came into town, they took over like 6 clubs. Because the Angels, they would tell these big clubs, hey, we'll absorb you, but you got a prospect.
Yeah.
Well, this Dirty Dozen, they've been around. They ran Arizona. That was their state, man. I don't give a shit who you are. They didn't let nobody. I remember way back in the early 80s when I was in the Sinners, a little tiny club out of Milwaukee. I remember way back when they were all brawling over the same bull, and I was losing my train of thought here. I do that the older I get, bro. So what I was saying is the guys in Milwaukee that I knew, all the old timers and stuff, all them guys are gone. It's all new guys. It's how fast the clubs are flipping over, and nobody, if everybody got along, well, everybody's got to puff up and show who's the baddest. I used to tell the Angels all the time, hey man, let's not be so arrogant and we're the baddest, everybody else. We never had any friends. So getting back to the Dirty Dozen guy, my train of thought came back.
Yeah.
I went to his house, and I didn't know that Pat Matter from Minnesota, the one, the guy that ratted on like 40 of us, he told the feds that I was a Midwest distributor of.
Jeez.
Now, hey man, I wish I was. I could use the cash.
I know, eh?
Right. But the Midwest distributor, bro, I wasn't even a dime bag guy, So I never even sold it. So every time I seen this Mesa Mike was his name. He was a confidential informant. That son of a killed a woman, cut her head off with a knife. I read the paperwork. And he got caught with a bunch of meth, and to get out of it, just to show you, and Bob would know this, because he sees the shady shit from us being in clubs. The cops told him, hey, well, forget about the murder thing. You just set up these other Angels.
Wow.
Pretty much like Sammy the Bull set up John Gotti.
Well, our snitch had the same thing because his handlers sent him to me. They said, now you got to go to that guy and see if you can get some off him. And he came twice to my house. And I don't know what you're talking about. Go away, right? And they were getting serious with me. So finally, they did it through another guy in our chapter that trusted him. I'm like, I don't trust him. He's like, oh, I'm good. It's okay. Here it is. Go away. And he got pitched for that, and they charged me with it too. That's the only indictable offense they had me on, and all that big stupid investigation.
I know, and it's stupid. It's dumb. But Mike would always say to me, hey, bro, I got a pound of meth. I'll give it to you for $6,000. You could sell it for 10, make $4,000. I said, listen, kid, I don't do it, and I don't sell it. I don't know anybody who even buys it. So it doesn't matter if it was $2,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I'm like, get off of it. So every time, Bob, I run into this bastard. He tried to sell me that pound.
Every time, yeah.
Every time.
And they're so obvious after a while, aren't they?
I like to agree with you and say, yeah, but I swear to God, Bob, I never had a clue with this punk, you know?
Of course, our guy made it to chapter boss, so I should.
Yeah, you told me that.
So
this guy transferred his other charters just to get to where the cook was, you know?
That's what he did. He was on chapter number 3 already, and in each chapter, he went to somebody and bought something from them. Yeah. So they kept trying to get pew-pews off me because I had a nice collection, and they're big time in Canada, right? Just for having one. So I had a really nice collection of them because it was going to get bad. You may as well have one, may as well have 2, may as well have 4, whatever, right? You know, right? I mean? And he kept asking me for them, and I kept turning them down. But because our chapter guys were so worried about money, we didn't talk amongst each other and said, hey, Screwball over here just bought such and such from me, and then he asked you for the exact same thing. Like, what's going on here? We never talked amongst each other like that. We kept everything that we did private, right?
Yeah.
Like he got right up to the guy running the ship in Canada. He got him too. He got all of us.
Yeah, so, I know the feeling, bro. Pat did the same with me, but
what happened with the Dirty Dozen guy, Pee-wee?
Well, the Dirty Dozen guy, you know, I'm standing in his garage. Well, first of all, let me back up. I was driving a semi through Phoenix. Now, this is exactly how I should have caught it. Was like an informant thing. He calls me on a cell phone. He goes, hey, Pee-wee, what's going on? I said, hey, Mike, what's up? And he goes, hey, where you at? Now, why would he call and ask me that? I'm going right through Arizona. You know why? Because the feds told him I was. And he says, where you at? I said, I'm going through Phoenix. I had to come down here and pick up this Peterbilt and take it back to Las Vegas. He says, why don't you stop by? We'll go to lunch. And I said, all right. So I swing by, park the truck in front of his house. I walk in. He's working on his bike. He's got his patch on, and you know, and he's on his knees down there, and he's messing around with the bike. And I said to him, hey, Mike, can I use your pistol? I got a piss. And he goes, yeah, it's in the house down the hall to your right. I go in his house above his fireplace with all these pictures on the walls, right? All Dirty Dozen pictures. No Hells Angel, nothing. And he's a Hells Angel now.
Wow.
Nothing. It was all Dirty Dozen. So I kind of looked at it. I thought, that's weird, you know? So I walked in, took a piss. I came out, and he said to me, hey, man, I don't know why you don't want to take that deal. That's a good deal. This Mexican dude I know, he's the guy who makes it up. You can pay him whenever you can, man. He doesn't rush you on the time, and he'll front it to you. Well, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit anybody. I thought in my head, hey, piss on him. I'll rip him off. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm sure I'll find somebody. I don't care. What's he going to do? Come beat me up? Shoot at me? I shoot back. So I go, okay. I said, this is my big mistake, Bob. I said, all right, Mike, go get it. So he jumps on his bike, man. He's excited as man because he's wearing a wire.
Yeah,
and out of nowhere, he takes off. So I wait about 20 minutes. He comes back and he says, he said it'll take him about 45 minutes to get it ready. He's got it at a storage unit. He's got to go get it. And I says, you know what? I really didn't want it anyway, and I got to get going. I don't even have time for lunch. And he says to me, no, man, wait. That's how he was. I looked at him. I said, man, dude, you're acting like a freak. See, I didn't pick up on it at all, Bob. I swear to God. Yeah. I didn't pick up on it. So I got in the truck and I left. And think about this, bro. I don't know how many times you've been in Nevada, and if you ever came across the Arizona side, when you come from Arizona to go into Nevada, you got to go over to Hoover Dam.
Right.
So because of the 9/11 bullshit, they make everybody pull to the side, man, and they tear the trucks and cars apart.
You don't want that in there.
Yeah, because if you have a bomb, bro, and you're going across the goddamn dam and it blows up, man, that's major. You know?
Well, you didn't want that thing in there if they're going to search your truck like that.
Yeah, but it could have been.
But I didn't think about it, Bob. I would have had to toss it out the window.
Yeah, man.
So I thought to myself when they were going through the truck, thank God I didn't take that thing, you know? So then when I got back home and we were in Sturgis and he walks by this young kid. This young kid's playing with his girlfriend. You know, they're in there grabbing each other's crotch. And Mike walks by and says, hey, save some of that for me. Now, this is a high school kid, bro. A senior in high school.
Yeah.
Mike is in like his late 30s.
Yeah.
He says, hey, save some of that for me. The kid runs out. I'm standing on the porch of my shop in Sturgis, and I could see him down the alley, but I can't hear what's being said. I see the kid come out and bow up to him, stick his chest out right in Mike's face. Then he pushed Mike. And then he starts swinging on him. And he was whipping his ass. The kid was whipping Mike's ass.
Good for him.
Right. Well, wait, it gets better. I tell two of the prospects, go over there and pull that guy off of him.
Yeah.
So they pull him off. When they pull him off, Mike gets up and takes off running. Cops come running everywhere. Freeze, everybody get on the ground. While I was standing up on the deck, I wasn't getting on the ground for nobody because you couldn't get to me, you know. And I'm standing up there. There's no bullshit, Bob. He's running up the sidewalk, and a cop steps out in front of him, puts a gun in his face, and says, freeze. And I see Mike's hands go up like this, and he says something to him, and the cop lowers the gun, and Mike takes off running.
Oh, they didn't know you were watching.
No. And I turned to the Hells Angel next to me. I said, did you see that? Did you see what I just saw? And he goes, yeah. So he runs in the back door of I have an apartment above my shop. And he runs in there. He's huffing and puffing, you know, and he says, hey, brother, I got away, man. I got away. Did you see? I said, yeah, I seen you. I seen you running up the street. I seen that cop point that gun in your face. You said something. He lowered the gun, and you took off running. What'd you say to him? You ready? He says, he told me to freeze. I said, yeah, I heard him yell that, freeze. But I didn't hear what you said. He says, I told him to get, and he lowered the gun and I ran.
Yeah, right.
And I was just standing there and I said, hey, you know what, man? I got a bad feeling about you. Something's not right here, and I don't want you staying here tonight.
Yeah,
and he goes, I got nowhere to go. I said, I don't give a fuck. You got to get out of here. I don't want you here. So I don't know where he went, but the next day, he didn't come get his toolbox because he was a mechanic. He didn't come get his toolbox or anything. So I had to tell this kid that comes out to work, he drives a truck. I said, will you throw his toolbox in the back of your truck, bring it back to Vegas? Because now he was a member of San Fernando Valley.
Oh, he moved
around. So he transferred.
Too.
Yeah, he transferred. And there was a guy out there that was cooking at the time. He passed away from cancer, you know, rest in peace. He was a good dude.
Yeah.
But that's why he wanted to go there to get the main source. So he moved there. And the president at that time, who's still my friend today, we're both out of the club. He calls me up and he says, hey, where's Mason Mike? I haven't seen that mother in over a month. Oh. And usually every 3 weeks, you got to check back into your charter.
Yeah, they pulled him.
Right. And I said, I saw him in Sturgis, but I got to tell you something when I see him privately. You know, I'm not talking on the phone. And he goes, okay. So I see him. I think we were in Oakland. And I told him what happened, just like I just told you. He says, that mother, guess what? And I said, what? He goes, at his apartment, we went and cleaned everything out because the landlord called and said, get it out of there. One of his lamps had a listening device in it. And I said, man, you think that is an informant? And he goes, I don't know. I can't wait. We never saw him again, Bob.
Never.
The next time we saw him,
it was in court. In
court for the Laughlin shootout with the Mongols. He came in as a character reference against the club.
No way.
Yeah. Now he's in the, hey, bro, now he's in the witness protection for the rest of his life. Yeah. And he's living free, but he still killed that broad and cut her head off. And she had 6 kids.
Wow.
But so when he was going from chapter to chapter, were people getting arrested or were they building a case? Like what? Did anyone get caught up in any?
He was building a case against all of us because I'll tell you what, when I got in a fight with the Mongols and I had to go to prison.
Yeah.
when they interviewed me, the feds stepped in and they said, hey, we might pick you up after you're done doing your state time. I said, oh, yeah, for what? Conspiracy to purchase. I said, well, good luck on that one. He put a tape recorder on, he pushed it, and there I was in the garage, bro. Yeah, go get it. Go get it.
Bitch, man.
Wow.
That's what I said, son of a bitch.
Right
I
there,
said, well, hey.
Right
I said, hey, fuck it. Then do what you got to do. And they said, that's little potatoes. We want to catch you on something big.
They wanted something big. Yeah. Do you remember when you first got, not very first, but when you were getting in the club for your first year, 2 years, and you start maybe doing some business with your fellow brothers, and you always think to yourself, he's got the same patch as I got. I trust him. I trust him with everything. He can sleep in my house when my old lady's there. He can do whatever. I trust him.
Right.
And then you get into court and you start reading the disclosures of what these f***ers have been saying about you. Holy.
When is the first time you guys ever felt betrayal in the club?
I felt it many times. I don't know about Bob, but I mean, I had like 4 Hells Angels wearing wires on me, 4 full patch members.
Wow. I had a guy who was in the club steal money off me when I was a hang around. And I still kept hanging around and joined the club.
What happened, Bob? How'd he steal money from you?
Oh, we were sharing a place together. He was a guy on parole. And I was saving up to buy my first Harley, man. It was only a couple $1,000s. I had it stashed in my room, and he stayed on my couch, sort of thing. And he was finishing out his parole. I get home one day, and he goes, "Oh, we were broken into." I'm like, "Who the f*** is gonna break into an outlaw's house?"
Right.
And he says, "I lost a ring, and I don't know if you lost anything." And of course, my cash was gone. And then
sitting right in his pocket.
While and it's like it was one of those relationships. He didn't ask me for it. I would given it to him. He didn't have to take it.
Yeah, but he was a scumbag from the get-go, bro. Just like I told you that vice president mine, he was wearing a wire. He was just asking like stupid questions in the meetings, Like, Bob knows exactly what I'm talking about. When you sit and talk in those meetings, even though you don't have your phones, if you've ever been raided, there's some kind of listening device somewhere in that house.
Yeah.
You don't say everything you think you could say unless you're somewhere like super private. And
we talked in sign language and all the
right.
He does, right?
And this one guy, when we got in a fight, he says, now I didn't see it, Bob, nobody saw it, but he said that he took his knife out the prospect, which was a member now, and he didn't get his patch for doing this because, like I said, I didn't see him do it. And he said he stuck one of the Mongols in the back, right? So he says. So while we're sitting there in a meeting, this kid I'm telling you about, this vice president guy, George, he stands up in the middle of the meeting, Bob, and he looks right at the guy. The guy's sitting right to his left. And you know what I'm talking about, the little tags, right? The stupid little tags they put on. Okay, I don't even want to say the name of it. So this guy thought he was going to get that. I said, well, I was the only one in the room, and I wasn't giving him nothing,
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting there, and I'm like, where's this going? Because, I'm the president, and I'm sitting there wondering where the fuck this is going. He stands up, he slams his hands down on the table, and he goes, I want to know right now, did you stab that guy or not? And he stands up and goes, yes, I did.
So there you go, aggravated assault.
Hey, next thing you know, when we all get arrested for the wedding chapel fight, he gets charged. I get charged because I used my hands when I knocked his teeth out. I got charged with felony battery with substantial bodily harm. He got it for felony battery with substantial bodily harm with a weapon.
Oh, Christ.
I told him, he says, I don't even know they saw it. I said, they didn't have to. You told them.
Admitted to it, yeah.
You admitted to it.
And it was on video. And you even said that was like a cowardly act for him to do that. The guy was on the ground already.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he was on the ground. He was already knocked out. But that makes it easy, you know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Not moving much. right?
That always cracked me up. You put different things on you for things that you do. It's like, holy f-. And then they write it in the books. There's two guys one guy in Canada. He does a whole YouTube channel, and all he talks about is the Hells Angels in Quebec and their alleged turf war with some street gang.
Wow.
And he makes a living. That's all he talks about. I can't see those guys in Quebec being too happy with him. He's like saying how many chapter members there are. There's another guy that's talking about this Marty guy in Montreal who's supposed to be running the whole show now in the whole world. And he does the same thing that the Gangsters podcast. It's like, Jesus, like
put a major spotlight on these people, right?
Yeah,
they put a major spotlight on them.
Yep.
It's like one thing talking about John Gotti, he's dead.
Right.
No, but there's people that are talking about the active mob right now. People that have no clue what this internet is all about, and they're putting their pictures up saying this is the head guy, this guy works for this guy. Like, that's a dangerous game, man.
You would think so. I don't know. See my YouTube channel, because I was a 1%er, and because let's face it, I wasn't a very nice guy. I don't think none of us were, right? I did what I did, right? That's just the way it was. So now when I talk about bikers and biker stuff, I talk about all the riding clubs that are raising money for charities, and all the dice run that are for hospices, and all the good the bikers do now. It's catching on, but it's not blood and guts. So the ones that I get the most click on is still about who got arrested.
Yeah.
And I don't like to forward the cop's story, because I know what it's like to be in the newspaper, and the shit they put in the newspaper about you makes you sound like Pablo Escobar, and meanwhile you barely even chopped a line.
Or they could flip it on you, Bob, like they did me. I walked past the DA, and she's a woman. She came out of retirement to put me in prison. Jeez. That's how bad she wanted me. So when they says 2 to 5, boom, you lay that gavel down. I was so pissed off, I was thinking, man, dude pulls a knife out. I light him up with my hands, and I'm going to prison. He's a victim. I don't understand it, but that's the way it is. I turn around. They put my hands behind my back. They zip tie me. As I'm walking by, I walk by her. I call her the C word. All right? Yeah. And she goes, hey, he just called me a dirty name. Well, the judge says, what did he call you? What did he say? She wouldn't say it. And when he looked at me, he goes, what'd you call her? I said, she's nuts. And I went into the other room. Well, she walked outside, Bob. The camera crews were out there. And this is what she said. And you're going to know exactly how I felt. She walked out to the camera crew, and they said, what happened? She says, well, the president of Hells Angels has been convicted of felony battery, coercion, and a gang enhancement. And he's off to prison. And she said, he's no longer a part of the Hells Angels. They kicked him out, which was a lie, bro. I quit. Yeah. I quit on my own. And she goes, they kicked him out for cooperating with the police.
Oh, they made you sound. I knew you were going to say that.
Did you leave the club before you got convicted, or after when you went?
I left the club. I left the club in 2010. I quit. And then I got convicted in 2014. I got out 2016.
Were you on charges in 2010 when you quit?
Yeah. We already got arrested. And I could see, Bob, how they didn't want to really pay for our lawyers. When 15 years, man, all I paid was assessments, one guy after another. Man, I was in jail in Sturgis, bro, when the Laughlin shooting happened. I get home, I was told, hey, man, you owe $1,000. Nobody even said, welcome home. You know what I mean? That was the first thing out of their mouth. But so they didn't want to pay that. And then I started getting the phone calls, which I really was enjoying, Hey, PeeWee, did you rat on me? I go, what? I never took the stand. I never testified. I said, how the fuck did I rat on you? Well, somebody said in a tape thing that they heard that you mentioned my name. I said, it was this guy named John, another guy who stabbed the guy I beat up on the floor too. And I said, John, I didn't say your name. The cops did. And all they said was, "Do you know John Merchant?" That's what they said to me. Oh, yeah, Bob, I could have been an idiot, just sat there and, zipped up and shut up. So I just looked at him and went, of course I know him.
He's in my
You know I know him.
Yeah.
And he says, did you see him? Boom. I stopped him right there, Bob. I didn't see him do anything. I don't know what he did or where he was. So don't ask me.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
Yeah.
But I said, did I know John Merchant? Yeah, I did. That's all I said.
Well,
so
that's huge difference. Huge.
Yeah,
difference.
he calls me up crying, Bob. He was crying. Did you snitch on me?
And that's the problem, because obviously your club would be the same. You can't give a statement. You can't go in and sit down and make a statement with the whether you're being charged or not. You just can't say nothing. I want to see my lawyer. I want to see my lawyer. I want to see my lawyer. That's all you're allowed to say, right?
Right.
But there's other times where the cops get a guy and he's sneaking around the corner. They don't have to be in the room to give a statement. You know,
right. It's true.
We've all seen it. You know, even these guys, when we all got arrested together, there was 30 of us in jail. Now, maybe 15 of that would be the management section of the team and the chapter bosses, so on. And then at 3 a.m, you hear a cell door open and close. And then when they crack the cells for breakfast, you're missing one guy.
You know where he's at.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing.
You know,
Rule 35, right?
Yeah.
And
they take a Rule 35 or something, right?
And the cops are loving it because now there's distrust amongst everybody. They
right.
Once you're in custody, they really know how to play you against each other in custody. Especially when there's a bunch of you, it's a big investigation.
Let me ask you this, PeeWee. When you got out, right?
Yeah.
Before you go to prison or while you're in prison, because you're at that time, you're not supposed to talk to anybody that's in the club. Were people in the club reaching out to you?
No.
None of them.
No, the only ones that reached out to me were ex-members, that all talked to me, and
a
lot of them when they leave the club, they reach out to me and they call me. You know what I mean?
But there was no active members saying, "Hey, this and that is being said," or none of that.
No.
So they kept it like the
way. And it's just like Bob said. When the feds came to the prison, they questioned me on a bombing, a shooting, all kinds of shit. And all I did was sit in a chair and they go, "Yeah, we're from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Louisville, Kentucky." Now I'm in prison in Nevada. And I go, "Wow, you guys came a fucking long way." And they said, "Yeah, we did." I said, "Well, you should have called before you came. I got nothing to say to you." And they says, "All we want you to do is tell us how the club works. We don't want you to snitch on anybody." And they wanted me to go, "Oh, that's it. No problem."
Yeah.
They would have gave him money and took him out of prison.
Yeah, they said, "We'll give you $5,000 and we'll get you out of prison." I said, "Man, I'm not doing it." And they said, "Why? Those guys talk shit about you." And I said, "Just because they're pieces of shit and they want to talk shit, let them say it to my face." I said, "Listen, I got to walk around with my head high, man. I'm not going to sit here and talk to you guys. Well, you don't need the money?" I said, "No, I don't need the money. I had money when I went in there." So I said, "I don't need your money." And I was already in my 25th month of being there. You're going to get me out early? Get the out of here,
You'll be time served.
Yeah, time served.
Yeah.
So I says, "No, I'll pass." And I'll tell you guys this. I was in one unit. John Merchant, the guy I told you was crying to me on the phone. I snitch on him. Well, right on the film, it shows him open up a knife, run and stick the guy 3 times, stick another guy 2-3 times. Then he closes the knife, puts it in his pocket, runs out the door.
Why?
I didn't have to snitch on him. It was all on film.
It's on tape.
And when he's doing it, there's a little arrow above his head, a green arrow showing everything he did.
Everything's on tape nowadays.
Right. Bob's right. So John was in another unit, in the same prison, but another unit.
Yeah.
He was only in there 18 months. All of a sudden, they release him.
And he's the one that did the stabbing.
Right. I think he's the one that took that deal with those feds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They wouldn't drive that way and only talk to one guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. As soon as you said no, they went and spoke to the other guy. 100% they did.
Were there
And you
more
know what he
guys
said, Bob?
in the prison? Or was
You
it
know what
just
he
you
said,
two?
Bob, to me? When we first got arrested, we were in a holding cell, right? Like you said, when he arrested all you guys.
Yeah.
So they had 11 of us in one big room, locked in. And we're sitting there, and I was sitting like this, you know, up against the wall, and I'm watching these son of a bitches. And you know yourself, brother, you see, you know, what do you call it? People's actions and the way they're acting in the jail.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, I'm no criminal prisoner. I'm not, you know what I mean? I've done 60 days here, 30 there.
Yeah.
I never
Me
went.
too, yeah.
All of a sudden now I'm facing prison time, which I did do. But you know, and I knew when we joined the club, we knew that was a possibility. So
Yeah.
I'm not whining about it.
Yeah.
But that John guy, he's pacing back and forth, and I says, "Hey, John, why don't you sit the fuck down? You're wearing out the concrete here."
Yeah. Well, like I say, when they had all of us guys in, some guys shook it really rough. Now I was kind of newly married. I bought a house and left it to my wife to take care of, and she never took care of nothing. So I lost my house. I gave my bike to my wholesale guy in Toronto. Lost my bike. When the cops raided, they took every penny they found at my house. Lost my money. So I was down to just having my clothes, my old lady, and my daughter to go home to. That was it. In one fucking year, it went that bad.
Yep.
And nobody in the club came and said, "Well, how much money does she need to catch up on the mortgage?"
Yeah.
And or nobody said, "Well, how about that guy that didn't get arrested, that bought a bike off you that still owes you for the bike? You want that money?" Yeah, I'd love that money. To this day, I never got that money. He goes, "Well, the cops took the bike." I say, "My problem. They took it from your clubhouse.
Right.
Delivered."
Yeah, so while you're in the club, you're collecting money to send to people that are in prison at the time.
Yeah. Well, we used to. They used to. I know the Angel used to. I don't know about Bob's, but like when I came around in 1994, man, we sent postcards, money.
Yeah.
We went and checked on guys' wives, like Bob said. Go over there. Hey, you need anything?
Christmas
There was an old Hells Angel
cards.
Right.
Canteen.
There was an old Hells Angel named Gramps that started Minnesota back in the 60s. And he had a brain tumor, right, where they took like half his head.
Wow.
And, you know, he just shuffled his feet. He couldn't do anything, you know what I mean? And he shuffling his feet, and he just, that's all you do is laugh. But he still knew kind of what was going on. So every morning he would walk, get a pack of Camels, a newspaper, and walk home. Well, some kid walked by, took his hat off his head, was a Hells Angel, hadn't kept it. So as a prospect, they'd make me, there were 6 of us. We'd have to take turns going over there, pick them up in the morning and walk with them to the store, 20 below zero, and then walk them back. And, you know, I say to them, "Hey, Gramps, jump in the car." "Ah, fuck that car. We're going to walk." And I'm like, what the hell, you know?
Was he a member?
Yeah, he was a member for a long time. And he just, bro, he couldn't ride anymore. You know what I mean? He had the brain tumor. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you how I knew he knew what the fuck was going on. When I left Minnesota, they went and took his patch and told him, "You're out. You're out of the pub." It's all he knew. Jeez. And when I came back to Minnesota to visit my daughter, and I saw him. I went and talked to him. And he was crying. And he said, "PeeWee, they took my patch. I'm not an angel no more. Why'd they do that?" So he wasn't as stupid as you think he was.
Yeah.
He was hurt. You know what they did, man? He's in the hospital dying, and they go in there and give his patch back. And then they told him, "You're a Hells Angel again." This is years later. They gave him his patch, put it on him, and he died in the hospital.
I hope he at least got a club funeral.
Yeah, that he got, bro.
Geez, we just before I joined, the guy who brought me up and I was a hang around under had been murdered at the bar I worked at, shot out front, him and another outlaw. So it was a big thing. 2 outlaws shot and killed, double murder, double funeral. And they sent a bunch of guys up from the States. Well, they sent some guys from Wisconsin. You're from up north, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin.
They were giants.
It's all that corn we eat down here, bro.
They got big guys out there, PeeWee?
Yeah, they have some big dudes, man. Yeah.
You're a pretty big dude yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm 6'8", 320.
Yeah, you're a giant too.
Yeah.
Like we all thought we were tall at 6 foot.
Right. Yeah, I knew all the guys, Bob, back in the day, man, like Jingles from Milwaukee and a lot of guys, Serp. These are all old timers. They're all dead. They're all dead.
They sent up these guys. So we're talking, I think it happened in 98. So they sent up, and what I got from their chapter, I was still a hang around, was State Line. And they sent about 2 or 3 of them guys up. So I don't remember their names. All I remember was there was a kid at the funeral showing before the actual funeral, and he came to the showing, and I was out front of the funeral home, and this kid had been with the people that shot the outlaws that night. And I seen him. I said, "What the fuck are you doing here?" I went to go grab him, and this guy from State Line just puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, "There'll be time enough for that later, brother." I said, "Okay."
So you guys been to a lot of funerals for your brothers that have passed away.
Oh,
what's it like to have a funeral from the club?
It's a big deal, man. It's a big deal when the guys get a club funeral. Even if he died, like we had an older fella die of diabetes, but he still got the full club funeral. It's a mandatory for the region. Everybody goes. I wonder if you guys do this. As outlaws, we fill the hole back in.
Yeah, we do too.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
It always amazed me, Bob, is when the guys laid out the day before, in the funeral parlor, everybody's sticking shit in their gold rings.
Yep.
And what I did, Bob, is I had these poker chips, and they had a death head on them. It said Hells Angels, Nevada, Las Vegas, and then in the middle it said 1 million. Right? It was a black chip.
Right.
And when the guy's hands were closed like that on his body, I'd always stick between his fingers, the chip sticking up. But all the shit they used to put in the coffins, and then they make the prospects stand there all night to make sure that the mortician didn't take all the shit out of there,
Exactly. Well, this funeral had so many weird things happen. So we bought 2 plots beside each other in the cemetery, of course, but they buried them diagonal from each other instead of beside each other. Like they were supposed to be like that, and they ended up being diagonal like that. So we had to inter one of them. So we had to dig them back up and move them. And all because as we were throwing the dirt in, guys were still throwing rings and money and shit in there, right? I'm like, how the fuck did all that get moved over? His helmet, everything, right?
Right.
Because we put his helmet. He was a crazy. He had remember like the Vietnam vets, war guys used to put the Ace of Spades playing card in there. He used to put that in his helmet like that. He was obsessed with that sort of stuff, right?
I knew some of those guys. Yeah.
He wasn't even worried about. He was the one guy that said, what are they gonna do? Kill me? I'm not having that good of a time anyway. That was his own. Right. I'm like, well, he was right. He was banged up in jail pretty much since the probate. He was in jail more than he was on the road. Some guys just have that luck, eh?
Yeah.
Our chapter was a kind of a crazy chapter for Ontario. So this is before my time. This is my guy told me this story. One of their members, kind of like your Mensa Mike guy, he had killed a woman out of nowhere. He took the air out of her tire at a truck stop and then kind of waited till she pulled off the side of the highway to get her tire fixed and grabbed her and took her somewhere and raped her and killed her and burned her.
Wow.
And she was just a university student coming back from Easter weekend to go back to classes. So it was a big thing. And it turned out it was this guy did it. And then they went out on a mission and they got a guy from another club called the Satan's Choice. Now, the Satan's Choice are all now Hells Angels. And when the Outlaws came to Canada, they broke the Satan's Choice in half, and half patched over to Outlaw, and the other half stayed Choice, and now they're Angels. So there was him and the driver, and he actually did the squeezing of the trigger and got caught. And then he put it on the driver and got himself, you know, when they give you blanket immunity for any other crime you might have done.
Yeah.
And he skated on that poor student. They had the army come down and everything and block it because he lived right next door to the clubhouse. And the army came and everything and took his chopper out of the garage and took his out of the house. Yeah. Crazy, eh?
It is crazy, man.
And then after that, years later, there was another CI in our chapter P at the time, was doing a lot of cane. He was the guy, right, for the Outlaws. And he was doing lots of it. All the other chapters worked through him and everything. And his stepbrother fucking ratted on him. Well, not blood, but you know what I mean? You grew up with the guy.
Yeah.
And then he rats on you, man. This guy who did a documentary thing on a TV program about snitching on his brother. And he goes, oh, every time I hear a Harley, I get scared. It's like, good. You ought to.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
You want to know the funniest? The cop that was handling that stepbrother guy when he was snitching was fucking the guy's old lady on the side.
That even makes it funnier.
So he put his own brother in jail for 10 years. He's had to move all over, and then they kicked him out of the witness program anyway, because after a while they get sick of you. You're no good to them, so they just put you aside.
You know, I used to know Taco real good too, right? I talked to Taco many times. When I was a sinner, before I became a Hells Angel, I would see Taco all the time. And Grease Lightning, all those guys. Steroid Harry.
All them guys. They were all in the generation before me. I wish I didn't meet none of them guys. I wish I had them.
I knew them all, brother. Yeah. I knew them all. They're good guys.
I heard Taco was a good guy, like a really good guy.
You know, he's with me. I'd get him good every time, Bob. He'd say to me, hey, PeeWee. I look over at me, he'd be standing by a booth. He says, hey, how come you never buy any support gear from me, right? And I was in this other club, and he had the shirt with the guns, snitches, are a dying breed, Detroit.
Yeah.
I'd get him every time, Bob. I'd walk up to him, and I'd say, all right, give me a shirt. And he said, okay, what size? I said, I need a 4X. And he goes, I don't get no 4Xs. And I said, oh, maybe next time. He said, I got a 2X squeeze. I said, I get no 2X.
I could see him being the type of guy that would bring a 4X one time just to fuck you.
Oh, he would too. I just had to avoid him after that.
Did they ever offer you a spot in that club? And did you ever think about going that way?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, I grew up in Milwaukee, you know. It was always Outlaws in Milwaukee. I guess, you know, after I joined the Sinners, which was a small 3-patch club, that, you know, we went down party many times at the clubhouse with the guys. I've been in Joliet Clubhouse. I've been in Chicago's Clubhouse.
Yeah, because I think I must have watched more of one of your interviews than I realized, because I remember you saying that. And then from the Sinners, you guys ended up becoming friendly with the Angels because they wanted to come to Milwaukee?
No, they never really. You know what? There was a group that you guys were fighting with called the Heaven's Devils. And they were only one charter, Bob, right there in Milwaukee. And they weren't big. There were maybe 15 guys.
Yeah.
They came up to Minnesota when I was prospecting, and they said, hey, we want to be Hells Angels. So we were supposed to go meet them at a bar. We walked in there. Pat went to meet them. They were hammered, bro. They were hammered. And they're like, hey, what's up? And he said, you know, you guys come up here to talk to us about something serious?
Yeah.
And you get all f***ed up? Well, you guys, you're a bunch of punks. And we walked out of the bar. And then when they got back, they were getting thumped by the Outlaws all the time. And after a while, bro, they just finally gave in. And now they raise support patches, hey patch. And now I see them hanging around with them all the time.
Yeah. They just needed some change in the
right. And hey, I did them a good one, Bob. In my book, I put in there that they came up and asked to be Hells Angels. So they're probably back on the list,
Yeah. Well, oh, geez. Yeah, I wrote one book. The first version of my book, I left all the club names as they were and the people involved, because most of them are dead. And
right, that's what I did.
And any crime I talked about had already been through the courts.
Right.
So
Same here.
I wasn't telling anything new, but the club right away was like, hey, man, you got to pull that book. I said, all right. So I pulled the book, and then I redid it. So it's based on a true story book now. But it gave me a little more freedom to put a little more stuff in, because now I'm not talking about any real person.
Right.
Right. So actually, it made the book better.
Right on.
Yeah. So it's out there. I'm working on it.
Brother, I redid my book 14 times. I had to redo it.
Oh, yeah.
And the editor charged me $3,000 to edit my book.
It's expensive. I got 12 grand into my book.
Oh, mine was 11. Mine was 11,000 plus the 3. And then he sends me a note. He says, I read your book. I think you were angry when you wrote the book. I think that it's all over the place. You should rewrite it. And I think that you're violent, sexist, and racist. And I'm thinking, I paid you $3,000 to tell me what I already knew.
Yeah. And see, that's what I did too. I wrote the book, and I was mad at the Outlaws when I wrote the book. So I shouldn't have wrote it from that headspace, right? You know what I mean? Because,
I started the same way, Bob. I did the same thing. Then I went back and I changed all the,
And then at the end of the day, I got nothing against the Outlaws as a club.
Right.
It was the best years of my life. You know what I mean? It was an honor to be in that club, if you think about it, and from the right viewpoint. So I rewrote it, making it more like that. You know what I mean? But there were some sketchy guys doing sketchy things. You know how it is when you're doing well, and all of a sudden the guys in your own chapter are plotting against you.
Right.
It happens.
Well, that's what I talk about in my book. I said that, when I made member, the first thing that was said to me, Bob, was, PeeWee, you're going to see a lot of things in this club that are going to break your heart, man.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? You'll see. And he was right, man.
Yeah.
A lot of break your heart,
Jesus, me and the chapter P. He was P, I was VP. We were together every day, 7 days a week. We were together. My house, his house, clubhouse, strip joint, on our bikes, wherever. We were always together. And then one day I come to the clubhouse and all of a sudden sitting on the bar, and he quit. And then the next day you see him with a Hells Angel prospect patch on. It's like,
wow,
what the fuck happened here?
That would freak me out, bro.
You know what I mean? Like, man, we were brothers. You know what I mean?
There was no signs or anything.
Not a word. Not a word.
I know 3 Hells Angels right now. They call and talk to me, and all 3 of them are all now pagans.
Really, eh?
What?
And I said to them the same thing I said to the other guy. Why would you jump right back into a fire again, man? Yeah. And they're like, well, they offered me, and I got by the angels. And I says, what does that mean, though, bro? I mean, now you got to look behind your back all the time.
I think it's going to be a hot summer, don't you?
Yeah, I do, bro. I really do. I don't want to mention his name, but one of the outlaw guys that talked to me from Milwaukee, he said they had problems with the pagan guys, and I think he told me that they were having negotiations with the red and white guys, and I was thinking, well, good, man, maybe this time it'll work out. But I will tell you this. 1 year up in Sturgis, again, Bob, this is another time. The one time was in San Francisco, and Cisco said, hey, the truce is off with the Outlaws. Well, this was another truce, bro. and I was in Sturgis. I was sitting behind the counter in my shop, and Sonny was there shooting the shit with me. And the phone rings. I pick it up, and somebody goes, "Hey, I guess it's back on with the Outlaws again. So, war's back on." And I'm like, "What the man?" So I hang up, and I'm shaking my head like this. And Sonny goes, "What's the matter?" I said, somebody just called me and said the war's back on with the Outlaws again. That I don't know, we f***ed something up, and they said fuck us, and the shit's back on. And I'll never forget this as long as I live, Bob. Sonny looked at me and he says, "Now there's a guy that's in the club 60 years." He says, "You know something, Pee-wee? In all the years I've been in this club, every time we had a truce with the Outlaws, we broke it." And I looked at him, I says, "Well, that ain't something to be honored about." And he goes, "No, it's not. But I'm just telling you that every time it's been us that fucked it up."
Oh yeah, because I think that when the guys in Canada started taking our guys, that killed another truce.
It did, bro.
Yeah.
That was what I was telling you before. And I don't know where it happened. I know it was in Canada, but I know that's where it happened. And then the shit was on again, But I mean, really, bro, now stepping back, growing up in Milwaukee, knowing all them outlaws, the way I do and stuff, just like I said in my book, bro, we're really not that much difference, Bob. All we are is a different, hey, brother, all we are is a different color scheme.
Not at all different.
100%. You could have just as easily been an outlaw, and he could have just as easily been a Hells Angel.
Absolutely. I could be a 30-year member right now of the Angels if I had it when they offered it to me. And a lot of them guys did very well financially from going that way, right?
Right.
So good on them. And,
Did you know, Bob, did you know Shock?
No.
A guy named Shock?
No.
He became a national president. He was the go-between the Outlaws and the Angels. He would come out to Frisco. And one of the times I was out there, I never got along. I hated that dude's guts. And that's why when you were asking me before, Billy, if I ever would have went that way, I would have never went that way because of that one piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he would, I'd be having a meeting with their president, Jingles, and he sucker punched me in the face. When I jumped up, man, the door opened up. They're all there with axe handles. I was like, "Oh, this is how this is going to go, huh?" That's when I was in the Sinners. So
he sucker punched you? I never heard that story.
Yeah. I was sitting there talking to Jingles. I had my head like this, and he sucker punched me. When I jumped up, man, the door flew open, and it was going to be a boot party for me.
What did he sucker punch you for? What was it over?
They were mad because they called over to our clubhouse and nobody was there but the guy on watch doing the clubhouse watch. And they said, "Hey, when you get done there, why don't you swing by our clubhouse and have a drink with us?" And he said, "Okay." And he never showed. And he never showed. And like Bob would tell you too, by saying, "Hey, Bob, I'm going to stop by you and stuff." Yeah. That's a slap in the face. It was disrespectful because if I said I was going to stop by Bob, I should stop by him.
A guy from another club, and he was a great big man too. And the chapter was out of town, and I was just being on watch. And he came to the door, but he knew I was there because he saw me out and about that night. So I had to let him in. And the guys in the chapter were like, "Well, what were you going to do if the guy decided to knuckle you?" I said, "I don't know, man." But you know what I mean? So the secret was just kept saying, "Oh, the guys will be back soon. And I got to get going. Sorry, bro." And let him have a beer and move him out to the door.
Right.
Yeah, he knew.
Well, when Shock punched me in the face, Billy, he punched me and I turned around and I said, "You just punched me in the face?" And he says, "Hey, that's for your guy not showing up, disrespecting us. You can give that to him." Like I was going to go give it to him,
Yeah.
Which I want to jump up and take care of him right there. But when I found out he was coming to do the negotiations, I said, "Well, I got a problem with that dude." And they said, "Well, we got an agreement, man. If you got a problem with him, he comes here. You guys can fist fight. No weapons, no rings. You guys could just fist fight." I'm thinking, hell yeah, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah." So then next thing I know, the meeting was called off. Chalk rolled over, snitched on about 45 guys. Most of them was the state line guys, like
Jeez.
Bob was talking about.
Yeah.
Those guys all got 20 years of life.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. So he ratted on about 40 guys, and Milwaukee Jack was one of them, a bunch of the guys.
He was famous too.
Right. I just talked to him like back in October. He's in a halfway house. He's doing good.
I met so many guys from down in the States who had such. I even met Smitty who got his way off of death row in Florida.
I knew Smitty.
Yeah. He was on death row for years, and
he was an old Navy. He was an old Navy SEAL, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I think I got a picture of him. That guy you're talking about, PeeWee. Let me see if this is him.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys from Florida because they had one of their higher ups roll. I think that was when Taco got done.
Yeah, it might have been.
Is
Yeah.
that him?
That's Jack. That's Jack.
He looks pretty pissed off in that picture, don't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got them dead eyes.
Yep. But, he did time because of this guy. So this guy that we're talking about, they moved him to Nevada, and then from Nevada, people knew he was there. So then they moved him to Oregon, and he had him in a witness protection. He f***ed up there, and he told him, hey, screw you. Now he's back in Milwaukee. I was back there, and they said, oh, the guy's down there, the Outlaws got a $10,000 bounty on him or whatever it is. And I was like, he's running around there, man. If they want to find him, they could find him.
That snitch who took out all of us guys in Canada on that one project, about 4 or 5 years later, so everything's done. The dust is settled. I retired from the club and went my own way. Me and the old lady had another kid. Me and the old lady got divorced. I had my kids one weekend for visitation. I call a cab and my snitch is driving it.
What?
My roommate comes out. He was in the club too. He goes, don't get in that cab. I go, why not? He goes, that's Norm. I'm like, what? I walk up and it's the snitch. I go, bud, get out of here for fuck's sakes, man. Send me another cab.
Whatever happened to these days? Hells Angels, Vagos, and Mongols all together.
I don't know, man. That was an old picture, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think that's from? 70s or 80s, maybe?
And,
that picture right there that you just showed me, that old black and white one, I think that one's like from like the 70s.
Yeah, this one, I'm not sure when. I think this is from the 80s. It looks about the 80s. You'll never see this again.
You might. You never know.
Might. Yeah, Bob's right. You might see that again. Bob will tell you, man, the only one that's going to win is the governments. And with this RICO now they're hitting the clubs with all the RICOs, just like they did the mafia.
Okay,
see what they did to the mafia, bro. It's going to happen, man. I hate to say it. Like Bob said, I had some of the best times of my life in the club, but
yeah,
it's coming to an end.
Well, because they got to quit worrying about who's got more money. You made enough money. Slow down. You're good. You know?
Right. Or who's is bigger than the other guys. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's stupid. It really is, man. Like I told the guy, and he says, yeah, I'm having negotiations with the red and white. I said, good. I mean, but like I just said to Bob,
yeah,
they'll end up breaking it.
Yeah, they don't hold them. It's like, yeah, man. It's like what's going on in Europe. Yeah. We'll be good until they don't feel like it no more.
Right.
Or there's something over there that they want, and they just take. That's it.
Yep.
And all the big clubs, because, as they hang around, the first thing you're taught is if you ever seen a group of guys that aren't bikers beaten up, like for me, a Hells Angel, you go and help out that Hells Angel because he's a 1%er. But how many people ever lived to those kind of standards?
Nobody I know of.
I'm sure your club told you the same thing. All 1%ers are supposed to, help each other if it's against the government or someone.
But we did, Bob. We helped the Mongols. Remember when the government took the Mongol patches?
Yeah.
We stepped in. We gave them all the paperwork and the lawyers. Our lawyers to give them the info and help them. And I was one of the people that was saying, why are we doing this, man? Why are we helping these guys?
Yeah,
and they said, hey, because we could be next.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
It
you
says
guys gave money and everything, right, to that
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah, we did.
And now when we were all in jail in Canada, because it was the first time they ever used it, was a new law. And we watched it get voted through the House of Commons and everything. We're like, we're gonna get fucked on this one of these times. And so they took our club for a test drive, see how they could prosecute on it. It didn't work for them.
No,
But it was against our Charter of Rights. It was one of the parts of the law was if they're grouped up in more than 7 people wearing the same insignia on their clothing, it's part of the evidence that you need. It's like, well, that's against our freedoms, man. I can wear
Right.
whatever the fuck I want. What if we all got the same back tattoo? You know what I mean? Like, but so the Angels at that time apparently offered our guys on the street to help if we wanted to fight it through the charter fight, and our guys turned it down.
well, yeah, the Mongols didn't turn it down, bro. They took the money and the help, you know.
Another pride thing.
I mean, New Zealand has already adopted it, the gang insignia bans, so you cannot have a patch whatsoever out in New Zealand.
Well, I know in Canada, bro. I know that Angels up there told me that they labeled them a criminal organization.
But see, this is the hard part about this criminal organization thing. The cops labeled them a criminal organization, but they've never had. No, they had one. They've only had one member, and they told them to plead guilty to it. Then they'd fight it on the charter. But they've never been convicted of being a criminal organization. They've just been labeled one by the cops.
Okay.
So every time, that's why I don't do the police stories, because, like I say, I don't want to further their story, because every story in the paper says, you know, the Hells Angels, a known criminal organization. That's how they word it.
Right.
Every time. Or else they call it a gang instead of a club. They love
Right.
doing it. Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly not a gang. It's clearly not a gang.
Well,
Right.
somebody, and Bob will agree with me. Some of these clubs are.
It's like Hollywood said, if you don't want to be called a gang, stop doing gang stuff.
That's a good saying, bro.
You know what I mean?
And then they got that, like, there was a big situation that just happened with the Vagos and the Mongols.
And now they're all buddies again, I heard.
Yeah, I heard they had a little agreement going on now, a little peace thing.
Yep.
But allegedly, 2 Mongols shot and killed the Vago because of the patch. They were like, you got to respect our patch or something like that in a bar.
Jeez. So it's and that's what happens. Like even down in Sturgis, you'll hear the story gets back out of the woodwork that so some guys, 4 or 5 guys from the Hells Angels grabbed a couple of outlaws that were straggling and knuckled them. But it doesn't really hit the papers. But that's another reason to put an end to all the talks that were going forward. And maybe these guys just done it because something was said in the bar. Maybe they just done it because they felt like it.
But look what happened with Little Dave. Okay, Little Dave gets sucker punched in the face. He's no longer part of the club. So what? That beef carries on and it keeps going?
I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like, when will it end, right?
That's it. It's been going
stupid.
so long.
Here's what I see. Here's what I see happening, Pop. I see, because now the Banditos, they're getting along real good with the Angels, and they're becoming pretty good close friends. And if the Outlaws become, I don't know if they can ever coexist with, like 2 bulls in a pen. They got to bump heads all the time. But if they could do that with the Bandits, because right now, if you look and see the Vagos and the Mongols and the Pagans, they're all like grouping up, Yeah. It's almost like getting ready for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. The only ones I never ever see that often, like take alliances, is the Outlaws very often. They seem to always want to hang out by themselves.
Right.
And with the Outlaws and the Hells Angels, because of the history of the clubs, neither of those clubs will ever say, okay, we'll put down our stuff and put yours on. It'll just Never happen. It'll have to
No.
It's going to be a wild summer. I'm telling you.
It's got to be a coexistence thing, like you said.
And you know what, Bob? When they took over the Dirty Dozen, there was like over 100, 140 of them, wherever it was. There's like 3 left. 3
That's
left of the original guys. And you remember when
where'd all them guys go?
Bro, they ran them off left and right. I've seen some of those guys I've seen some of them get beat up at officer meetings for no reason, man.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think that snitch had the Dirty Dozen pictures in over his?
Because I think they were more proud of being, I honest to God, a guy just reached out to me. He said I was a Hells Angel for 2 years. I didn't care for it. I quit. But I was a Dirty Dozen for 24 years. Yeah. And his name is Lonnie. And I was just like, wow, that's a trip. And he just hit me up on Facebook and he was talking to me, and he just said it wasn't for him. We took over when we made the Hell's Henchman prospect and they became full patch members. They were in the Midwest there, so they were fighting with the Outlaws all the time. And I don't know, I think 3 funerals I went to down there, but those guys were fighting all the time. And out of those original henchmen, only 2 I know, 3 are left.
They're still there.
Yeah, 3 out of like 80 some of them. Huh?
The whole club almost dissolved, right?
They dissolve them. They deteriorate them, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I say with all them small clubs in Ontario that they took over, same thing. They started with 500, and then they get rid of the ones that they don't want, and they don't want that many guys anyway. But I still think
when they patch over these guys, does the club no longer exist? Is that it?
No, club's done.
Most cases.
Can anybody resurrect it? Has it happened before where they resurrect?
Yeah, the rock machine still exists. They came back to life in Canada.
Right, but I don't think like what Billy's saying, Bob, I think is like if a club wanted to go to the Outlaws or go to the Hells Angels and become that.
Yeah.
Like when I was in the Sinners, the Outlaws said if we had our patches and we would become Outlaws in Milwaukee. But we hung around with them for like 10, 15 years. Even before I joined, they were hanging out since the 60s.
I'm surprised you guys never joined.
Well, at that time, I told you that one guy I couldn't stand. There's no way I would be in a club with him.
Yeah.
I didn't meet the Angels till 91. You know what I mean? And and I had the club built up pretty much, the Sinners. And then I just says, I think I'm going to do this. And they just looked at me and said, we know you don't hate us, bro. You just outgrew us. And that's mainly what it was,
Yeah. You wanted more. See, then that's the one thing about the club that I was fortunate enough to get involved in. So I had to go on the run because they wanted me to be a witness at the murder trial for the 2 outlaws that got shot. So they wanted me to be a prosecution witness.
Oh,
by that time, I was a full patch outlaw. So I was like, I'm not doing this. So I jumped on a plane and went to England and lived in England for 8 months and patched in 3 clubs in England. So all of a sudden, after I went home, there was a bunch of AOA outlaws in England. And that was because of me. So that was pretty cool.
Expanding horizons.
I got to see like that because a lot of guys get stuck in their own chapter and they think the whole world is that city that they happen to live in, right?
Right. And I tell people too, I says, who are the guys who are doing 30, 40, 50 years in the club? And Bob will admit to this. Those are the guys that never leave the city. They always hang out at the clubhouse. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
We call them in the club jams, just another member. And you know what? The guy never goes anywhere. You run into him at a bar or you run into him at the clubhouse and you go, hey, man. And he says, I'm a 20-year member. You're like, I never even seen this guy.
Yeah, movers and shakers end up getting either quitting or.
Well, because it's so hard to go from country to country. None of us can go to Australia.
None of us can.
None of the Americans can come to Canada. I can't go to America. You know what I mean? I can go to
I
Europe.
can't come to Canada. And you know where else too, Bob? Is Croatia. When I went to Croatia, I got there. As soon as they found out I was a convicted felon, told me to beat it.
Where you go, yeah.
Hey, we
That's
could
all it
stand
takes.
at the border and we could be like, "Hey, what's up?" Right at
Yeah.
Especially in Canada, because they're walking across again on the east side of Canada into Quebec again. They started back up again this spring.
Oh yeah.
I think a bunch of the illegals from the states that don't want to get sent back to Honduras are heading north. Yeah, they're coming. We're not getting them in numbers like you guys got them.
Wow. That's
I
crazy.
still can't believe they had millions of people walk into a country and just wander on in. That's insane.
yeah, they
Weird.
just let it happen. It's crazy.
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
They're sweeping them up now. You go around and yell "ICE," you see a bunch of people run.
But yeah, and before I went to England, I got to go down to Bike Week in Daytona, and so you know how that is for the Outlaws. I think that's a mandatory.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so I got to meet all the leadership of my club in Daytona too. That was only 3 months I had my patch. That was really cool because that on your way out the door, the older members like, don't forget, no patch is bigger than yours. And actually, they were cool that way down there. That's how they treated everybody.
Yeah.
They treated everybody like an equal.
Yeah, they always used to say Daytona was all outlaws. That was their gig. That was their thing.
Yeah.
And then Sturgis always was ours, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was funny. This one member, I don't want to mention his name. He's out of the club now, but he was heading to Florida, to Daytona, and he had his patch on. And he stopped in New Orleans, right? I was bouncing down there at a club for Mardi Gras. And I was making big money. And he stops by with another Hells Angel. And he says, "Hey, brother, how you doing, man? We're gonna head up to Florida for Daytona week." And I said, "Are you crazy?" And he says, "Why?" I said, "Man, it's all outlaws there. You're gonna show up there wearing your patch?" And he goes, "Yeah." This is like, he's a 40-year member. I mean, 50-some years he was in the club. He goes, "Yeah, fuck him. I'm going." I said, "Okay." Next thing I know, I get a phone call. "Hey, did you hear what happened to so-and-so?" "No, he's going down the main street, and you guys used to have the clubhouse right on Main Street there."
Yeah.
Somebody ran right out there and hit him right with a pipe on the head. Boop.
They did.
Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah. And I said, "Hey, man, I told him that was going to happen."
Didn't even wait. Didn't even ask
And like Bob will tell you, like one of the guys from Minnesota, he was a bad dude. I met him when he first got out of prison on manslaughter charge. And he had a big death head on his chest, and he had one on his forearm. But the one on his forearm he still had. He quit the club. He was out of the club for years. And he went to Daytona, and I'll be a son of a... He told me a bunch of outlaws surrounded him in a bar. They didn't have their patches on because I guess he got a no patch law. But he said they had belt buckles on. He said, "I knew who they were." And he said they surrounded me, and they told me, "Hey, you one of those angels?" And he said, "No, I used to be. I quit." And they said, "Well, hey, we're giving you a heads up, man. We don't let you fly here. We're giving you a break. Get the hell out of here." And they just told him to beat it. I mean, they could have gave him a good beating.
They seen his tattoo.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Bob, you always look for that. Belt buckle, rings, tattoos, hats, belts.
Pendants tucked in the shirts.
Yeah, man. It gets almost to a point. I still find... I've been out of the club 15 years now, and I still find myself looking when I go places. Because I always try to... You know what I mean? I don't know. I try to make sure I know who's around me,
When a bike goes
I was eating at a bar yesterday, and a bunch of pagans walked in.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of their home base.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't watch my show.
Well, I know, like, back in the day, we weren't, like, doing stuff together, but we had a thing with the pagans where they didn't bug us and we didn't bug them, sort of thing, for the Outlaws anyway, because they were pretty serious on the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah, they used to be a really small elite group of guys. Not that they're not, some of them now aren't, but they were like a very exclusive group. Like just anybody couldn't join them. They were very tight knit, and then it just exploded with the blue wave. Just different.
Yeah. I've never seen one, Bob.
A pagan?
I've never seen one in real life.
No, I've never met one either. The
first one I've ever seen in real life was yesterday.
Yeah, I've never met one.
And look at me and Bob. Me and Bob were at major clubs, and we never seen one. You know what I mean? And that's because what Bob said. They were small. You know, and they were just up around Philadelphia. You know, and in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And now, shit, we just said it, man. They're in Nevada. They're in California, Indiana,
crazy,
Ohio. That's what
they're accepting black members now too.
And I don't know. I remember when I was in the club, we had a few chapters in Ohio, but it seems to me that the Outlaws have either shrunk a bit or moved some shit around, because places I remember having chapters, I don't see them in the website anymore. Is listed. So I don't know.
Bob, what about black members? Were there ever any black outlaws?
We want to get us. Yeah. When I went to England and I was patching in those clubs, one of them was called Outlaws, but they weren't like AOA Outlaws. So they had a different back patch on, and their colors were leaning towards Bandito. So they were making up their mind whether to come with us or go with the Banditos. And they had like 6 or 7 chapters, one in Wales, 2 in Wales, and spread around England, but not in London, England. Like I say, they kind of, when they heard I was there and I was staying, the guys in the States, they said, well, tell them to come back with a report whether they're ready or not. So 2 of their guys in their club were black. And so they kept asking me, they kept saying, are they going to take these guys? Are they going to take George and Steve? I said, yes, my word, I'll make sure that they take these guys. So as far as I know, they took them.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. That's big. Like, because in the United States, I didn't ever see in the past, even Hells Angels. I think things are changing now.
Oh yeah, they got them now. They got them in the club now.
But have you ever seen them when you were a part of the club? Have you ever seen a African American Hells Angel?
No.
But
no, I never have. And I went to Frankfurt for a world meeting where we sat in there and we explained, because Amsterdam wanted to bring one in, right? Bring a black guy in as a prospect. And we said, you can't do it. And it wasn't about race or hating black people or any of that. I tried to explain that. It had nothing to do with the racist card. They didn't care. These guys in Amsterdam, they love this guy. They said, hey, his skin's black, but he's one of us. And all we said was, hey, man, the rules came from America. That's where the Angels started. And we basically told them, in America, the penal system is all segregated, bro. When you walk in there, Billy, well, you've been in there, man. The blacks over here, the Mexicans over here, the whites over here. It's very, very segregated, bro. Yeah. And I mean, you can't be a lone wolf out there, man. You get ate alive.
And that's the reason why the club was the way it was.
That's the only reason why they had it. So maybe now they're changing it. Maybe they'll see in the future it doesn't matter. And then if it does, well, then that's on them. They got to figure it out.
But like you say, when you go inside, you got to pick a car, and that's your car.
Yeah, right.
I was pretty shocked when I seen a black pagan member. I mean, I've seen the old school picture of the black guy wearing a pagan cut, but now in the new day and age, there are black pagan members.
Well, I've seen a picture with 4. It had a black outlaw, black pagan, black Hells Angel, a black bandito.
No way, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I never understood the color of the skin thing myself, except for, like I say, inside a jail. But I think once you get there, you can sort it out.
Right.
Just crazy. The times are changing,
Oh, yeah. Well, remember all the bikers you saw running around with swastikas and shit on?
Yeah.
I think I'm the last generation that stopped putting swastikas on my, on my body and on my rag and stuff.
Well, the Heathens motorcycle family, they have a nice big one right there on their back patch. And they're not taking it off anytime soon. They're proud of their patch, and they have an African American member.
That's weird.
I interviewed their president.
Hey, I'm gonna have to go with Bob on that one. That's weird.
But it's not about that. If you guys watch the interview I did, it's not about race at all. It's this is the guy right here. I'll show you the president. I'm interviewing him now. Matter of fact, part 3 is dropping today. Part 3 or part 4 is dropping today. Yeah, you've been watching them, right?
I watched the full-length one with me finally last night. Were you around when Germany said that the Hells Angels weren't, but they only said that club weren't allowed to wear their patches anymore in that country?
Yeah, I was there. It started off in Hamburg, Germany. I would run into those members, and they wouldn't. They weren't wear.
Yeah.
Oh,
there it is, right there. Wow.
Oh yeah.
They have an African American member, and I said, "Do you get crazy looks?" He said he's usually all masked up, and when he pulls his mask up, people are like. Then he just drives away. And I mean, they explained it to him. Listen, this symbol is from back in the day. They brought home war trophies and things like that, and that's like part of what it is. And it's a dead issue. They accepted him in, and he's one of the family. It's pretty wild. But Australia, I interviewed one of the Australian members. Australia made them take that part of their patch off because
the government did.
You cannot have that in Australia. So the Australia chapter only has a wheel with spokes.
Well, those guys in Australia, all them different clubs down there, because there's a bunch of them.
Oh God!
And they brought it on themselves. They've been shooting and killing each other for fucking ages.
Hey Bob, did you ever see that one? I just seen it on YouTube. Did you ever see that one with the Finks and the Angels at the MMA fight?
No.
I've seen that
bro,
one.
Look it up. Yeah. Look it up. They're at an MMA fight.
Oh, that was wild.
Fighting. The Finks and the Angels started fighting right there on the floor. The guys are in the ring fighting. They're fighting. And, man, they're going at it. And this is all you hear about. Pop, 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 pop. Bullets are flying. People are hitting the floor. You got to see it, bro. It's crazy as hell.
Jesus.
That's up on my Patreon. My Patreon channel has that video up there.
That's a crazy one, bro.
No. I remember after I was done being in the club and stuff, I got arrested on some more charges, bad stuff. One of my co-accused was a Hells Angel from Montreal. Because this one kid was doing business with me and the Hells Angel guy. And this is after Bob Bouchard had been wrapped up and sent to prison and stuff. And then someone during that time had flipped. So this guy, my co-accused, he dealt with his blow charges in Ontario. And the cops came from Quebec and picked him up and back off to jail. He went there. And about 20 of those guys all got picked up, and they're all just starting to get out around now. So whatever it was a big investigation, and they were in for a long time. It's got to be 10, 15 years ago now. So, yeah, there was a lot of bad things going on in Quebec, and those guys were getting big time.
There's a pagan on the left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one on the right is the one that got assassinated in the Bronx. He was the president, Hector.
Who was he?
He got killed. He got killed by the 2 Hells Angels that jumped out with silencers. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, they got caught.
Yeah.
When you see him running across the street.
Yeah, with the guns, with silencers. Yeah.
And you know how they got him, Bob? When they took off in that stolen car, the cameras on the corners of all the lights, they watched exactly where the car went. They just, every time it turned, they just watched the camera. They saw him pull into an empty parking lot, throw all the shit in the car, jump into their other car, take off. They got the plate, got him.
Yeah. They got 3 Hells Angels for that,
Uh-huh.
and the whole premise behind that shooting was allegedly the pagans shot up the clubhouse for the Hells Angels
Yeah.
the day before, a couple of days before their new clubhouse in New York, right?
In the Bronx.
And they suspected that it was them, and they sent these guys, and they got caught.
And
Because
then,
that clubhouse was in the Bronx.
hadn't there been something prior to that too, that there was an event that was open to the public, but it was traditionally an event that the Hells Angels went to, and the pagans decided to come that year and took some.
Oh, the Hellraiser's Ball. The Hellraiser.
Yeah. And they got knuckled around pretty good that night, didn't they?
Yeah, one of them died. Matter of fact.
Oh.
No, one of the pagans died. Yeah, the pagans got shot by
an angel.
My God.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, my brain, man, the older I get, bro.
They ended up dropping the charges against that angel.
No, you know what he did? He had to do a year for an unregistered gun. But he shot like 2 of them, and one of the guys died in a van. They were trying to get him to the hospital, and he died in a van.
Yeah.
And I can't think of his. God damn, man, I'm telling you, I can't think of it. Yeah, I got a picture of him. He's got long black hair. He's a big man. And then they screwed him around, and he left. He was from Long Island, and he left Long Island, and he ended up moving to Myrtle Beach, I think. And then he was in Myrtle Beach for a while, and then they got rid of him. They kicked him out of the club. I don't know, man. It's like I said, man. I don't know how it is in the Outlaws, but when I sat there and I grew up my whole life in Milwaukee, and I seen like 20 Outlaws. I didn't know one of them. And I was like, man, how times have changed, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody changes. And I said this, the Angels is like a revolving door. And that brother that's patting you on the back, he's just waiting for the right time to shove you through the door.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
That's what it's all about. Bob will tell you.
I saw one.
Right?
There's these guys in the North Toronto chapter, and they were like kind of where the power base in Ontario was when they had 300 patched up Hells Angels at once here. And the chapter president went for a bike ride, got in a crash, died. His club brother moved in, took over his business, took over his old lady, moved into his house, and just stayed.
That's crazy.
I've seen that happen a couple of times, again, I don't want to mention this guy's name, but he came up to me in Sturgis, and he mentioned this young lady's name, and her husband was a Hells Angel for a long time. He just died about 6 months ago, and this is way back, like in 2008, 2009. That angel came up to me from Washington, and he said, hey, I'm in love with so-and-so, Now, this is this angel who died. This is his widow.
Yeah.
And I just stood there for a minute, Bob, and I was like, what do you mean you're in love with her? He said, I'm in love with her. I want to marry her. And I said, well, listen to me, bro. Just listen to me. I says, he's only been gone 6 months. They're going to be looking down on you like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Because you're already moving in on a guy's old lady. He goes, no, they didn't have that. I said, listen, I don't give a fuck about anything. You want to do this right, bro? You want my honest opinion? And he goes, I do. It means a lot to me. I said, do this then, bro. If you want to be with her, quit the club, hand all your in, and go be with her. And he goes, really? And he was only a member for 2 years, Bob. And he did. He quit. He handed his in. And I swear to you, Bob, that was back in 2008. He's still married to her to this day and have 2 or 3 daughters.
Wow. Maybe it was the right decision for him.
It was.
But
and they're very happy.
No way he could have stayed in the club and did that.
No way.
And no.
You would have got people would start beating on him and saying, hey, you were going behind his back, screwing it,
Yeah. And it's funny Because I've never understood why a brother would ever want to fuck his brother's old lady. There's
Never. I know, bro.
There's a
I
million
know it.
girls out there. Girls throw themselves at us when we have our patches on. You know what I mean? You go in a strip club. If you can't pull out of a strip club, then you're not a very good fisherman. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. You're carrying the wrong bait. Yeah.
Oh, damn it. I appreciate you guys, man. We could keep going all day long with you guys.
We probably could.
I really appreciate you guys reminiscing about your past lives.
Well, it was nice talking to you, Bob, and nice meeting you, brother.
It was great to meet you, Pee-wee. Thank you very much, bro.
No problem, bro.
I really enjoyed talking to you, brother. I really did.
You too, bro.
Yeah, we'll get another one going with a whole bunch of people on it.
Sure,
maybe
man.
I can get that other outlaw guy to come on. You know, the one that needs that closure. Because if anybody could talk to him about it too, is Bob. You know.
Yeah, 100%.
Because he was in that club for 15 years, and he getting a goddamn letter in the mail with one sentence on it says, "We voted you out." Bad. That was it.
Never ever heard of that in my life, man.
I'm telling you, that's the way they do it with. Hey, they tell everybody they threw me out of the club, the Lions, and I quit.
I don't even understand why they bother. If a guy's out of your club, why would you talk about him ever again? That's
I know.
It used to be, don't ever say the guy's name again.
Right.
But Out Bad used to be a really bad stigma on people.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, there was a reason why you were out bad.
It really doesn't mean no.
Not anymore.
It only rattles you if you're still trying to be in that life. When I left the club, I was leaving the whole biker life behind too.
I did too, Bob.
Yeah, see, it's the way to do it. I didn't want to go leave the club to be in another one. I was done.
Hell no.
No.
Because you're going to run into him at the Harley shop, right? Eventually.
I still run into him, bro. Yeah. People go, "Hey, Pee-wee, don't worry about it, man. In time, you'll just fade out." I said, "I'll fade out." It's been 15 years. I'm 6'8", 320 pounds. Every time they see me, they Google my name. They go, "That's him. That's him, man." Next thing you know, man, I got troubles.
Can't go anywhere, man. I can't bring you anywhere, Pee-wee.
Nope.
Thank you guys, man. I
appreciate it. Nice meeting you, Bob. Billy.
Thanks, Pee-wee.
Definitely.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for making this happen, brother.
Right on, man. Chatting with Staxx.
Yeah, definitely. If you like the show, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. And if you don't like this show, too bad. Start your own podcast. Peace.